Moment of prayer. Lord, tonight we pray you will continue to bless and guide our district leaders and the many people that make their success possible. We welcome back 2 board members for new terms in office. We pray you will bless and guide their actions and judgment throughout their term of office. Tonight's the first board meeting of the new year. We pray you will direct and guide the board and this district throughout 2015. Welcome back from break the administrators, staff, teachers, parents, and students, and we pray for safety, unity, and success as we strive together to continue to move from good to great, one student at a time. We give thanks for our many blessings and pray you will guide us as we seek to do your will. In the Lord's name we ask it. Amen.
Normally we jump right into student and staff recognition. You'll have to bear with us for a moment. We do have some administrative business that we must do in January at the start, so it won't take very long, so please bear with us. So, first item on the agenda is the election of the president.
I would like to nominate
Mr. Mashmeyer has been nominated. Any other nominations? None appearing? Nominations are closed. All in favor signify by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, sir.
Well, thank you.
You
And
can
thank
take
you.
over now.
Well, and thank you for all your hard work in the last year, keeping all these rabble rousers in line.
It's difficult.
All right, well, the next item is the election of vice president of the board.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Wertz.
All right, Mr. Wertz has been nominated for vice president. Any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. All those in favor of Mr. Wertz for vice president, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is appointment or election of the board secretary.
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Ott.
Ms. Ott has been nominated. Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of the election of Ms. Ott as the secretary of the board, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Very good. Welcome. All right, the next item is board member salaries. The current board member salary is $2,000 per year with no per diem for meetings. Is there a motion to continue that practice?
So moved to continue as we had before.
All right, it's been moved. Any discussion or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the board meeting schedule. Currently, we meet on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. It's suggested that we meet the same time with the exception that the October board meeting be held on October 19th rather than on the second Monday due to the fall break. Is there a motion in favor of that board schedule? All right, it's been moved. Are there any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the board schedule signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is appointment of board members to various committees. I'm going to go through the list. I have the list of the committees and I have the current appointments. I am going to throw out the possibility for discussion whether or not we want to continue with serving on so many committees. Certainly we may, we don't have to. It's certainly the board's pleasure. Are there any thoughts or comments about the current committees? Too many, just right?
A question that I would have is if we, on some of the committees, do we help do we help? I mean, sometimes obviously, you know, you're there as a parent, or we're there as a parent, we're there as whatever, but we're still on the school board. And so does our appearance with those committees, does that, is there any concern at all that it drives the end result, you know, whatever you come up with on the committee, that it drives that as opposed to it being through the consensus of the whole committee?
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
is your concern that we don't want to unduly influence committees?
Right.
On the other hand, we like to be plugged in and have the benefit of knowing what's going on.
Right, we want to be involved in that sort of thing, but we, you know, and there's a time where it was more necessary than perhaps it is now. But maybe, again, we would still want to be on all these committees. And as Mr. Mashmeyer said, it would be whatever the board would decide. I would just be throwing that out as, we haven't always been on all those committees.
I would certainly somewhat defer to the counsel of our administrative staff. So I'd like to hear what Dr. Clendenning and his staff would have to say.
Well, I believe that it does serve well to have you on in your different voices. As we look through those, there are a lot of informational aspects to being on the council. For example, legislative council, when we look at Neola policy, I think it's prudent to have, you know, someone on there. So when we come back for first readings and adoption, we have someone that's fully vetted them on behalf of the board. Music council and athletic council are both very important to our district. And I think there's a lot of conversation that takes place that we can then share information back. So I believe all of them are important, and I respect and honor I appreciate having everyone on those committees.
Have you, because you sit on a lot of those committees, don't you?
I do. Yep.
So in particular, is there any committee that you notice any undue influence that you feel from the board?
None.
Good. All right. Well, we want to be open, and we want to know, we want to talk about these things. So that's good. Anybody else share any concerns about that? All right. Well, let's move through these one at a time. Currently, the Music Council is Mr. Wertz. Mr. Wertz, is that something, I guess these are these appointments by the president, or these are appointments by you?
I'm recommending that these are mine. I'm
Your
asking for
recommended
you to-
appointments?
Yes.
All right. So Dr. Clendenning is recommending that Mr. Wertz be appointed to the Music Council, Mr. Thompson, the Athletic Council, myself to the Legislative Council, which in reality is the Policy Council. That Mr. Wertz be appointed to the Superintendent Strategic Task Force Council, Mrs. Ott to the Communications Committee, Mrs. Ott to the Education Foundation, myself and Mr. Wertz to the Collective Bargaining Committee, myself to Central 9, and Mr. Vaught to the RDC. That, with a note, is an appointment made by the mayor, but Dr. Clendenning gets to make the recommendation of Mr. Vaught. Is there any person appointed to council that wishes not to serve on one of those committees? Everybody's comfortable doing that. And would it be appropriate if I could show you as the alternate at Central 9, Darren?
Yeah.
All right. So in our minutes, if we could show Darren as the alternate at Central 9, and certainly his engineering background be a great benefit there. So I guess we're ready then to move on to appointment of treasurer and deputy treasurer. Yes, am I out? Do I need a vote there?
No, but I do want to establish something. These committees, at least the athletic or council, athletic, legislative, strategic task force, collective bargaining possibly. Those are not board created. Am I correct on that?
That's right, they're
That's correct.
appointments from the superintendent.
There's a reason why we clear that these are not board created, but rather administrative.
Right, right, and I very much appreciate your clarification. So for the record, those are all appointments made by the superintendent, and the function of the board was just to ask the appointed members whether they were willing to serve. Next item, appointment of treasurer and deputy treasurer. These are also superintendent appointments. Is that right? Superintendent appointments, these?
I'm recommending these as well.
Okay, so the superintendent's recommending appointment, the current treasurer, Mr. Mercer, and the current deputy treasurer, Ms. Burton. And is it appropriate for us to approve all of his appointments, Roger?
It would not be inappropriate.
Okay,
I don't know that it's required. I think the treasurer, deputy treasurer is something that needs to happen.
okay, all right. Okay. So there's a motion to approve the treasurer and deputy treasurer. Are there any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next item is appointment of school board legal counsel, which I believe is a board appointment.
Move to retain Mr. Young as continued legal counsel.
All right, very good. It's been moved to reappoint Mr. Young as board's legal counsel. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much for all your excellent counsel. That brings us to the recognition portion for individual student growth.
Thank you, Mr. Mashmeyer. One of the best times of the board meeting is when we recognize outstanding students, teachers, community members, and leaders to things that are driving our school district, the guiding principles. And so today, we have many student athletes in attendance, as well as a couple of teachers of the year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Nally. As she reads your name, please come up. For students, we are going to get one big group picture as we move forward.
Sure. We had several fall athletes who qualified for academic all-state. So we'd like to recognize you now for girls volleyball, Jessica Admire and Lexi Hash.
Congratulations.
For boys cross country, Blaine Connors.
Congratulations, Blaine.
For girls cross country, Morgan McCarter, Gianna Damianos, Bianca Tisdale, and Zoe Piotrowski.
Congratulations. Bianca, congratulations. Congratulations.
For girls golf, Lexi Elliott.
Congratulations.
For girls soccer, Shelby Cox, Anna Perk, Elizabeth Ronick, and Macy Eaves.
Congratulations, Anna.
And for boys soccer, Bryce Winsel, Justin Beasley, and Spencer Sullivan.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I think, Jess, there's a mic right behind you, I believe. Is there?
Behind Gianna.
If you could just start down there and tell us where you're going to go to school next year, and if you brought anybody with you. For juniors, just anyone that you brought in attendance tonight.
Okay. I'm Jess Hadmeyer. I'm going to Butler University to play volleyball, and I brought my mom, Beth Admire, back there.
Hi, I'm Blaine Connors. I brought my mom, Marguerite, tonight, and I'm undecided on where I'm going to school, but I have been accepted to Butler, as well as Marquette.
I'm Gianna. I brought my mom with me over there. I'm also undecided where I'm going to go, but I've been accepted to DePaul and Xavier, so I'm thinking about that.
I'm Bianca, and I'm going here next year. And I brought my mom and dad, Patrick and Alicia Tisdale. I'm Zosha Pietrowski, and I also gonna go to Franklin next year. And I brought Bianca's parents. I'm Lexi, and I'm gonna go to Purdue next year, and I brought my mom, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Shelby Cox. I'm undecided of where I'm going, but I will be studying pre-medicine, and I brought my mom.
I'm Anna Perk. I will probably be going to IU next year, and I brought my parents.
I'm Bryce. I brought my mom, my dad, my grandma, my sister, and Jake.
I'm Justin. I brought my parents, Mike and Krista Beasley, and my brother, Drew.
I'm Spencer. I brought my mom and dad, Sean and Charlotte, and I'm going to be attending Wake Forest University.
Congratulations. All right, let's get 2 rows and we'll take a picture for parents and everyone.
Shelby's in front.
Yeah. And just kind of squeeze in. Yeah, we're in. Oh, one more. Congratulations.
We'd also like to honor tonight some staff members who have exhibited the guiding principle of leadership within our district. Nancy Bailey was named Secondary Teacher of the Year for the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese in Indiana. Mrs. Bailey received this honor at the annual Indiana Foreign Language Teachers Meeting. Mrs. Bailey.
No, we'll do it both together, get a
Yeah,
picture.
okay, go you stay.
Yeah.
Her colleague, Judy Carlstrand, was inducted into the Honor Society for Spanish Teachers. This group has included around 60 teachers honored in the last 30 years of the society. Congratulations.
Before they sit down, I have to just brag on them a little bit. I just met with students that are home from Christmas break from college, and I asked them a couple questions. And one of the questions I said, well, what's a class that really helped you and provided you opportunity to do well? And of all the students, your names came up over and over again, and your Spanish and what you provided for them. And I can tell you on behalf as a parent who has the students, one student that's been through you, and then one that's still with you. Hang in there with Jeff. He's a good guy. But he is great. But your names came up over and over again for what you do for our kids. And so on behalf of the board and all of us, I just want to say thank you. You guys are great teachers, and we're honored to have you.
Tammy Jackson couldn't be with us here tonight, but she completed the required courses for the Indiana ASBO Voluntary Certification Program. Her certification designation is Assistant Chief Business Officer, which required 78 hours of instruction. So I want to just recognize Tammy. And then lastly tonight, the Indiana Association for the Gifted awarded Dr. Clendenning and Mr. Hayden, Creekside Principal, a leadership award. The IAG annually presents a leadership award to individuals at any level, parent, teacher, coordinator, administrator, legislator, or other, whose exemplary leadership and outstanding contribution to gifted education has affected Indiana's children, teachers, schools, programs, and/or policies. So you both get a certificate. I got to sign yours.
Well, thank you very much. Well, congratulations.
Who did you bring with you tonight,
Yeah.
Mr. Hayden?
This is my son Noah. Mary Ellen's out of town.
Noah, who'd you bring? Rudolph. Awesome. Mark has done a great job of transforming our high ability programming. If you look at where we've been the last 6 years, the journey has been steep, and I will tell you that across the state, Mark's name comes up as a leader. And the day that we got the reward, I actually thought he was getting the award, and I was just there to support him. And he thought that I was getting the award and didn't realize that. So I just want to publicly thank Mark. Our students, individual student growth is the #1 guiding principle for us. And through his work, we're definitely seeing that come alive. So thank you and congratulations. And we'll conclude
Is that all?
Yep.
Graceful exit. Sorry, graceful exit. Folks, if they want to leave. it's a
Oh,
quick time
yeah.
for graceful exit.
This is a good time, yes. Please, anyone who doesn't want to stay for the entire business meeting, this is a good time.
Am I on?
All right, we're ready to begin the business portion of our meeting. First, before we begin our meeting, it's our custom to allow 2 minutes to anyone who wants to make constructive comments about items that are on the board agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on the board agenda tonight? Please step to the podium and state your name for the viewing community and for us. And please try to keep your comments to about 2 minutes.
I am Andrea Martin, and I am here to just point out a couple of things that maybe weren't last Monday when probably attendance wasn't this great. Ms. Morgan, you're typically here and do the minutes, correct? Do you have any idea how many people were in attendance last week? Fewer than this, possibly? Oh, okay. And then I just had a couple other questions. Mr. Sprout, are you in charge of?
Mrs. Martin, this is the opportunity for you to make comments to the board to help us deliberate on items that are on the board tonight. This isn't a question and answer period.
Well, this is making a point that I can get to in just a moment, if you would allow me to. I'm just wondering when the public announcement was made on the website. I was wondering if Mr. Sprout was in charge of that and when it was posted due to the public hearing last week.
Okay. Who made our posting?
Mrs. Morgan posts all of the agenda items, and it was the Thursday before the public hearing.
So 5 days before the hearing?
The hearing was
Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
yeah.
Monday. Okay. Just wondering. And
Yeah.
then my other point for the board to consider regarding Dr. Clendenning's raise and any other raises to administration is that I believe 5 years ago, Mr. Mercer and some administrators went around school to school and asked and begged every teacher to stay on board, that the next 10 to 15 years would be really tough, and that the belt could not be tightened anymore. So any wavering in the budgets that were approved or to stand, they were asked to take pride in their community and not jump ship when another opportunity might look better, because we aren't able to compensate the teachers correctly due to the circumstances of the tax cap. So I'm just pointing out that 5 years ago, the administration went to every single teacher and asked for their commitment for the next 10 to 15 years without so much as without them being compensated for the due diligence that they do every single day for the kids. I'm just asking that you consider that before you have already made your decision, whether or not you're going to approve the raises this evening. However, I'd like to remind you of what you guys as a committee and the administrators asked every single teacher in this district 5 years ago.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public comments on items on the agenda this evening? Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Laura Alexander. Can't hear me? I'm Laura Alexander. Can you hear me now? I'm attending as a prospective parent. That's my 4-year-old. She'll be attending, she should be attending Creekside next year. I'm here concerned because of the money that we're putting into administration. And I think you do a great job, Dr. Clendenning, and I think you're worth the money, but I also think that our teachers are worth the money, and I think our support staff are worth the money, and they don't get it. And including things that go into the building, like asking if we can go every other year shampoo and carpets. If we're that strapped for money, then why are we giving raises? And you're a parent, you have a kid you have several kids in the school. You have one that's graduated. And so I know you're committed to our community, and I know that the teachers were asked to stay committed. So I would just like to see some commitment from the administration and the opportunity for the money to go back to the teachers, back to the support staff, back into our classrooms, whether that's through their salaries or hiring more support staff. But I'm not okay with 30 kids, 33 kids sitting in a room and one aide to a building. Just doesn't sit well with me, and I don't want that for my daughter. She's bright, but my second kid isn't. So he needs all the help he can get. So that's what I'm asking the board to consider, and for any support staff or administration to consider as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments, public comments on items on the agenda? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Dave Seaver, and I am a retired educator of 42 years. I want to say that without great leadership, we will not have great schools. When Dr. Clendenning came into this district 6 years ago, you were a broken school district. I sat with you, I sat with your administrators, I sat with your teachers. Yes, teachers were asked to stay on board and continue to give, as are teachers across the country. We never will pay teachers what they're worth. We can never do that. And I speak from 42 years experience and from visiting schools across the country. I can also, without question, say that you have some of the finest leaderships in this state, if not in this country. If we look back over the last 6 years at the progress that has been made under Dr. Clendenning's leadership, Mr. Mercer, wonderful staff of principals and administrators, it's second to none. The move has been from good to great. You're moving closer to great each and every day. If we are not as a great school district now, I'm not sure what that's going to take. So we need to invest in teachers, absolutely. There's no question about that. We can never pay them enough. But without great leadership and a rudder to guide the boat, who is of highest integrity, knowledge, a community member, somebody's going to come after them and sweep them away. It takes years to make positive changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaver. Are there any other public comments on items on the agenda? Hearing none, are there any board comments on the agenda? All right, that brings us to board council reports, Music Council.
What I have to say. We just debriefed about the musical and planning for next year. We also discussed our vendor and vendor payment potential, brainstorming ideas on what we can do about that going forward, whether we make a change or not make a change. We discussed what that process might look like. We talked about storage, staff, and potentially scheduling for next year at the Custer Baker and how that might fit in.
Okay. Athletic Council?
We have not met. We have a meeting coming up soon. I don't remember when.
28th, I think.
The 28th of January.
Legislative Council, we have some policies coming forward on the agenda. I don't think I have anything else. Superintendent Strategic Task Force Council?
We are scheduled to meet here end of this month.
Communications Committee?
We met and we're continuing our discussion on the school website. We spent some time comparing ours to others. And then Mrs. Betts is putting together not a binder, but like a folder with information about our school district that she can hand out to potential incoming students. She can give the businesses and realtors. We can have that on hand. Or when Dr. Clinton goes to conferences, we can hand out, give some great information about our school district.
Right.
I would also like to remind everyone that on the communication is our mobile app is changing. We are now going to School Wires, and you can find that on the iTunes website, or if you're an Android, the Android. And the reason I mention that is coming up, we're going to talk about weather and weather delays, and that's really the first place that you receive the information once the information has been declared. So please go down to the iTunes website or Android and pull down our new app.
And that's up and running now.
It is up and running, correct.
All right, good. Central 9, I just wanted to report Central 9 hired a second career counselor. And that's a new position for us, but what's of great interest is we really hired an outstanding person. We were able to hire Glenn Weil, I hope I'm saying that right. He has 35 years experience, 17 as a teacher. He's been a band director, and he's been a career center director for the last 10 years. So we've hired a career center director to be our second career counselor. So the job market's tough, but we have benefited at Central 9 from that hire. An interesting comment I just wanted to make that I heard from board members, one of the board members was they were amazed at how many of the administrative leaders in their corporations in different school districts have been band and choir and music people because of the incredible organization it takes to run and put on those big productions. They make great administrators. So that was, I thought, an interesting insight, and also made this look like a better hire. I hope it works out that way. All right. I've gone to black. So next is RDC's report.
there was not a lot. It just was an update on the Old Post Brew Pub and the Elks Lodge. And so not a lot that would affect us directly.
All right, great. Are there any administrative comments before we begin?
Yes, I'd like to note that on the personnel report that in December, Cindy Baker announced her retirement from our school district, and we just want to thank her for her service. She's a special education teacher that's been with us, and we just want to acknowledge her and say thank you. Also, Pete Dyke-Usen left at the end of December. He was a special ed assistant here at the high school, and both will be replaced.
All right, great. All right, the first item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Before I'm going to allow for comments on this consent agenda, but I'd like to make a comment here at the beginning. I guess got the bully pulpit tonight. I would like to state that anyone watching Franklin can see that we're making improvements. We're moving forward with increased success academically and in our extracurriculars, arts, music, sports. The board hires and directs only one person, and that person is our superintendent. The board's pleased with Dr. Clendening's performance in the direction of the district. The board's equally pleased with the collaborative and systematic manner in which Dr. Clendening leads our district. His contract terms and dollars reflect the board's desire that Dr. Clendening stay the course in Franklin, and that with the support of our outstanding teachers and our staff, move Franklin Community School District forward from good to great as the board and the community desire. I'd also like to make a general comment regarding another item within the consent agenda, which is the raise for Jeff Mercer, our financial CFO. The board requested that Dr. Clendening review Jeff Mercer's salary in comparison with area CFOs and consider an appropriate increase based upon the salaries of area CEOs and CFOs and his Six Sigma training and his leadership in that area, which has been so instrumental in moving our district forward in financially difficult times. It's based upon Dr. Clendening's findings and recommendations that this $5,000 raise has been made part of the consent agenda. I wanted to point that out in the interest of transparency, and I also wanted to take the time to thank Mr. Mercer for his Six Sigma training and his leadership work. At the same time, I want to publicly thank Dr. Clendening for his hard work.
I have a couple comments I'd like to add. We have roughly between 400 and 500 employees.
600.
600 employees. We have just north of 5,000 students. We have a total budget of $54
million.
$54 million.
31 in general fund.
So in my perspective, we are hiring retaining a CEO of a corporation that has 600 employees, 5,000 constituents, plus their families, and a $50 million budget. My struggle is, where else do you go to find a leader of that caliber that understands the technical piece of what it has to be done here in an education setting, which is quite large given the amount of governmental compliance in many, many facets that we need to be concerned about. So for me, having a incredibly strong leader who builds a culture of collaboration with the entire community, with staff, with educators, with business leaders in town, is extremely important in maintaining that continuity. And when you look at our peer schools, knowing that we're not even close to some of our peers in terms of what they're paying, we're not going to try to get there, but we at least want to be in the ballpark. And this is really a combination of those two factors, at least for me, that says this is where we need to go. So we want Dr. Clendening to stay. To that end, we offered an additional year to go on to his contract, knowing that at the end of that 4 years, which would be the end of theoretical end of Danny Vaught and my term, it will be the end of my term. I don't know about Danny's, but it will be the end of my nearly 16 years of being on the board. At that point in time, then the new board can just establish how many years they want to remain on his contract. So for me, as painful as it may be, this is a no-brainer for me. With regard to Jeff, under Jeff's leadership, we have he has led the corporation in saving over $2 million for the corporation, and has created an opportunity for us to have a gross revenue stream of just shy of $1 million. In the currency that we normally talk about, which is the number of teachers, if you took that 2 million, 2.8 million is really the number. That's in the neighborhood of 45 teachers that we would not have today had it not been for Jeff's leadership. That's a lot of teachers with a tremendous impact to our children. And so that small amount, again, when we look at our peers, we're not at the top, we're not at the bottom. This actually gets Jeff in the middle. And so, again, to me, this is a no-brainer considering the caliber of leadership that we have to guide our district.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the board?
I would like to say that in addition to what Mr. Mashmeyer and Mr. Thompson have said, I agree with everything that they said. There is a cost to keep and retain. There's what I would consider to be a higher cost to lose. Somebody in the position of Dr. Clendening and Mr. Mercer. When the beginning of the meeting, all the recognitions, everything done for the kids, everything done for the staff in recognitions. When I first came on the school board, there was none of that. You would have teachers that would be getting accolades that nobody knew about. Certainly in the superintendent's office. You had kids that are becoming all-stars every day, and they're not given a moment to honor them. And it's things like that that we have now that we didn't have. And part of that is from the people that have been on the board wanting that. But when we brought in Dr. Clendening, that was a natural for him. And so the prospect, and I'm not saying that we know it's a seller's market as a superintendent. And that's the way it is. You can like it or not. That's the way it is. Quality superintendents, that's a small group. And there's a lot of school corporations out there that are looking for that type of leader. And I know with Dr. Clendening, he has left thousands and thousands of dollars on the table to be here, to choose to be here. We know it and he knows it.
So for us, and the teachers that are here, you know that I try to get to as many PTO meetings as I can just to get information. And you hear of the stuff that the teachers are having to pay for out of their own pockets that people don't know about. Kleenexes, gloves, clothing. You see needs from your kids every day, and you end up, that's heartbreaking. But to me, the best investment for us, for our kids, and for our teachers and that sort of thing is to be able to retain the type of leadership that we have. And this is, we are in a forced march. And it is very difficult. And the board has been, I mean, we've had to live with that, and heaven knows our administrators, teachers, and staff are having to live with it. But in our opinion, it is our belief that this investment that we're making is best for our school corporation.
One comment I failed to make in that just recently, someone from the state has approached Dr. Clendening to present our journey from how we have been able to weather the storm financially, given our circuit breaker status, and where, quite frankly, we should be, in a deep, deep hole. So that's a testament to the leadership. It's a testament to their leadership when one of our peer schools in the northwest part of the county decides to come calling and find out what it is that you've done to save all that money to stay in financially sound footing. So, I've never wanted to be a Center Grove a school system, but by golly, when Center Groves come calling here and asking us what we're doing, I get pretty darn proud that the flagship school, so to speak, of Johnson County, that everyone thinks is there, is now coming here, wanting to know what it is we've done. And so to that end, I say hats off to these two gentlemen and their staffs, and collectively to the entire school. It's their leadership. Certainly, it's been a collaborative effort. They don't do this alone, but it's been born primarily from their leading a great staff. So I'm done. Thanks.
All right. Any comments from this side? All right. All right. Well, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carries. And we'll move on to the next item.
Mr. Mashmeyer, before we start, may I say a few words?
Certainly.
First, I want to just thank the board for this opportunity, but I also want to talk to the teachers here in attendance. And I would echo the words of here that I get to receive a lot of praise and accolades for our journey, but it has been because of all the people that work alongside me. It has been a long journey of 6 years, and there have been ways that we've tried to help each other. It's a collaborative street. Mr. Wallace and I have conversation regularly about what's going on in our district, about the journey. We clearly realize that in the coming months, we're going to have negotiations again for teacher contracts. And when we look at the journey of 5 years ago, when I went and talked to all of you, and we talked about circuit breaker impact and what can we do differently, some things are changing. And we're moving in a positive manner. So I would just ask everybody that we're in this together, and it's been great. As a board, has acknowledged some things. I'll just acknowledge that, like I said, I get a lot of the compliments, but it's because of all the hard work of many people. So I thank you on behalf of that. We have outstanding teacher leaders. We have outstanding students. Soon tonight, you're going to hear about a Hall of Fame that we're going to create to honor the people that made significant contributions that walked our halls. And I think that's what tells our heritage and our story. So with that, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to lead. I look forward to continuing our journey together.
All right, the next item are superintendent reports, 2014, the year in review.
Each January, we come together and kind of capture what's taken place over the year. And so we're going to do that. Each of us will take our own sections. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the overall view. This is very difficult to read, but kind of highlighting our successes. And Matt, if I start beeping, you can tell me. But academic achievement, we talked about individual student growth being the most important thing that we do. We have our highest achievement in our district's history. We've talked about that. We've shared our journey together. I just want to acknowledge that. Also, Union Elementary, under the direction of Sandra Brown and all of the teachers there, continue to be 4-star. One thing I didn't, and I on there, you remember Needham Elementary, has some mean people here. They were one of the top schools in central Indiana as far as I-STEP growth. And I will tell you, kind of peeling back a little bit, I went to one of their PLC meetings yesterday, and Mrs. Nally went. Outstanding. And we could see why they're moving forward with that PLC journey. Our partnerships with RDC. Our Chromebook, I think, was quite an accomplishment where we had over $500,000 opportunity brought to us at the high schools moving forward. And continue with our safety initiative. We were annexed into the city, and part of that move was with regard to safety initiatives, and that was completed in 2014. The relationship between FCTA and the administration. We did have ECA contract approval. Also during the year, we had a lot of conversation with the Webb Union teachers. If you remember in 13-14, we had split administrative team and guidance counselor. The teachers talked to us and said, is there a different way? And so we listened to them and we came up with a different way. Mrs. Brown is the guidance and administrator at Union, and we have a principal and a guidance counselor at Webb Elementary. And then the Revenue Generation Committee, we're going to hear just a little bit about preschool and after school care, what we're doing to move forward with that. High Ability Program we presented at the Indiana State School Board Conference this fall, and we shared our journey moving forward. And then Mark recognized as one of the state leaders as well, and myself. Teacher leaders, just recently today you heard about the Indiana Teachers of the Year for Spanish and the accolades for Dr. Carlstrand, as well as our Denise Rodenhus was a semifinalist for the Indiana Teacher of the Year, so we want to acknowledge that. The PGA Golf and Indiana Golf Association came to us and said we have a program we'd like to introduce at the elementary level where we're introducing golf and, more importantly, character education with regard to golf and its attributes. And so we've partnered with that, and so now all of our kids in elementary school are being introduced to golf and character education through that partnership. Continued professional learning communities collaboration, both within the buildings and between buildings. Our vertical articulation is really improving. Destination Imagination out of Creekside Elementary went to Knoxville, Tennessee to compete at the national conference. And then athletically, we had another great year, a very strong year for us. Started with wrestling. If you remember, a year ago, I stood up and talked about winning the state duel. We went on to place second in the individual tournament, and we had 2 state champions for us. We had Johnson County Athletes of the Year in baseball and volleyball. Jess Admire was here tonight. She was 2-time Johnson County Athlete of the Year in volleyball. And then the boys won the Mid-State Championship again, so that's always an accomplishment. The boys swim team placed 11th, one of the highest rankings of our swim team in its history. And the boys volleyball team placed in the Final Four. And so that was outstanding, upsetting cathedral along the way. And then band and choir continue to be state qualifiers. And if you did not get a chance to see The Sound of Music, I'm just going to put a plug in. It was outstanding. You want to see our kids shine. And one of the attributes of individual student growth is about experiences. Truly amazing. And we had kids from elementary school all the way to the senior, Emma, who was Maria. And then just want to talk about just the last thing is the PAC generation. We raised over almost $200,000 in revenue because of what was happening at the PAC away from here to try to help offset some of those things. So those are some things along the way that's allowed us to kind of that journey of good to great. Next, we're going to hear from Mrs. Nally as she talks about curriculum instruction. Huh? Oh, I do have another slide. I forgot. Things to look forward to in 15 real quickly. Indiana assessments, you're going to hear more about that. I mentioned earlier, and we are beginning informal conversations about the master agreement. Strategic planning continuation. I just met with a group of students to talk about individual student growth. We also had teachers highlight that, and we're going to hear more about that in the process. The evaluation process. I know there's been a lot of questions about teacher. We have great teachers. We want to continue to create a tool that reflects our great teachers, but also how to help people. And that's what we want to be about in our evaluation process. Career college readiness partnerships. We send about 80 kids to C9. 51% of our students are going on to a 4-year college. What about the other 49? And we want to really continue to grow that opportunity for us. And then Six Sigma training. We have several projects going on right now. I told Mr. Mercer at the start of the meeting, congratulations. He just got 2 more projects we're looking at inside of Music Council just to help us with staffing and projection. Substitute teaching is one of the present ones we're looking at. So Six Sigma continues. And our Chromebook integration, we have it at the high school. The next step is to bring it to Mr. Ahaus and the middle school with students having that one-on-one attribute. And then lastly, we have 2 brand new principals in 15, Mrs. Moran and Mr. Ahaus. And I just believe it's very important that we create mentorships and opportunities to let them be successful. So that's what we're doing in 15.
Mrs. Wiki and I are going to tag team on our curriculum instruction and assessment. As we look back, some things that we accomplished second half of last year, first half of this year, was our new ELA adoption of Journeys in Collection, which is our 5 through 11 ELA adoption that we're very happy with. We feel is much more rigorous and more closely aligned with the new Indiana academic standards. We also have increased secondary RTI and specific developmental reading classes for our most fragile learners and struggling readers are being supported all the way through high school. We have worked hard to align the 2014 Indiana academic standards with our curriculum. We are very proud of the K-12 instructional coaching that Nikki Sargent and Denise Rodenhuis have performed, especially with our brand new teachers into the district this year. We also last year implemented a 5 through 12 closed reading strategy, and we're continuing to grow and build that. We also added Chromebooks under instruction because it's more than just a tool, it's more than just an implementation piece of technology. We really are focusing, especially through our FITs, how to use the Chromebook as an instructional strategy. We brought 2 new assessments to help us identify strengths and weaknesses with our students. iReady is a Lexile measurement that helps us determine specifically in reading where our struggling students are struggling. Acuity, we thought was going to help us be a better predictive measure for ISTEP this year, but we've talked about all those changes. It does still help our teachers as far as determining what instruction needs to take place for each student, and then our different state assessment readiness tests. As I was looking at this professional development list a few minutes ago, it just kind of hit me. We have done a really good job over the last 6 years of embedding professional development with our own people. We very rarely go somewhere for the one-hit wonder and bring it back. Most of these professional development initiatives are determining who the teacher leaders are in our district and putting them in place to help our newer teachers grow. So we are looking at reorganizing and updating the website, Dr. Siever. The new Teacher Academy. I think the last 2 years we've had close to 20 new teachers come into FCS. So we continue to monitor and mentor them. We continue to work with our PLC leaders throughout the year, our facilitators of instructional technology who are in every building to help with technology integration. You've heard about our K-12 writing initiative to better align our writing program. We continue to meet with the writing leaders who work then as instructional coaches in each building. And then we continued on, this is I think our 3rd or 4th year, with grade level meetings that are district-wide. These have become things teachers have really asked for when we don't have them or haven't scheduled one yet. And our elementary principals lead those.
Looking ahead in 2015, I'm going to kind of start over at the right with professional development because I just want to piggyback on something that Mrs. Brownelli just said, which is that she really feels like over the last 6 years, the professional development has been truly embedded with our own people here. And I just want to kind of reiterate that as someone coming from another district, that's probably what I've been the most impressed with is that when Franklin Community Schools says this is our journey and we're moving forward, then that's the focus and that's what everyone's working toward. And I think that's why we see so much success in moving from good to great. So I'm just grateful to be a part of that. But if you look under professional development, you'll see that everything is the same as what we're doing this year because all the things that we're working on we feel are truly important. We're going to continue those in the future with the new Teacher Academy, the PLC leader meetings, and so on and so forth. And then moving over to curriculum, currently working with the Social Studies Department and their nominated committee of folks who are helping to choose the new curriculum for social studies, making sure that we keep in mind the addition of the new social studies standards, but also digital literacy and making sure that we make good use of the Chromebooks that we have and will be moving down to the younger grades. The FITS group is working on digital literacy standards to make sure that we're moving forward with those as well. Continuing to take what we've done with close reading and implement the writing process and literacy into content area classes and not just English language arts classes. Instruction, again, the expansion of Chromebook usage, just moving that further. And then Mrs. Brownelli and I also are working with a team of teachers and administrators to develop a new evaluation process and tool that we believe will help us to improve classroom instruction even more on our journey from good to great. And then under assessment, again, just trying to keep up and keep pace with the state and the constant changes in the state assessments, but not just to keep up, but to make sure that we're doing that while teaching students and preparing them to the very best of our ability. And then the last thing is just continuing to use data as we make decisions and drive classroom instruction through our PLC process.
I'm hooked up.
I suspect just like anyone else that stands up front and does this, even though individually we present, it's prudent to point out there's a whole lot of people that work really hard behind the scenes to make sure that all these things happen. A couple of highlights from 2014. I think certainly in my time here, the greatest challenge has been in navigating a circuit breaker system that is not perfect and doesn't treat everyone fairly. And despite that, we have worked very hard to kind of keep ourselves on target and hit those targets. We were able to do that this year in all but debt service. 2015 is our largest single debt service payment in the history of the school corporation, and it's been that way for many, many years, so it wasn't a surprise. We did implement the new compensation model in concert with the Teachers Association, and that was quite a large undertaking. It used to be that you would update their stipends and then negotiate a percentage increase, and it was a fairly simple process. We now keep track separately because they're all different, and so you in effect have a payroll structure for 265 different folks, which we've been able to implement this year, and and hope to be able to do that well moving forward. I did have the opportunity, thanks to Dr. Clendenning, to serve on the Franklin Development Corporation board and assisted with the new transition strategy. It's so incredibly important that we partner with our community and that we know the things that are moving in the community and that we have an opportunity to help influence that and to give our time. When I first arrived, we didn't have those things. Danny serves now on the RDC, and I have the opportunity to serve on the FDC, and I think that serves the district well. My position here is somewhat unique. My job doesn't look like the normal director of finance, and that's perfectly okay. I think Dr. Clendenning has tried to utilize what skills I have in the best way that we can. And so I end up being the process specialist, which means that I get to write in lots of new projects like the two that I inherited tonight, apparently. In addition to that, over the course of the year, I work closely with Natalie Morgan and the ladies in the central office, and we'll be rolling out our customer service project at the start of school. I have the opportunity, the distinct pleasure to work with Mr. Harder, Ms. Woolridge, and Mr. Martin on the coach remediation and guided instruction project that will be kicking off here in the not too distant future, and I've enjoyed the opportunity to get back with the high school staff. I've also served as sponsor of the preschool, Franklin Extended Education, worked closely with Mr. Doty on the ACE project. Those things you might recall spun out of the revenue generation portion of our project in general fund optimization. We do project in 2016 an additional $871,000 in revenue with the potential to net about $200,000. I mentioned this, and it's probably worth mentioning here because I haven't had an opportunity to talk to the board about it. These are three distinctly separate entrepreneurial pursuits, and having had the opportunity to run businesses in the past, as I mentioned to them, and this is in no way a knock on the folks that are on Jefferson Street, these three entities have the potential to be larger in terms of gross revenue than probably a quarter of the businesses on Jefferson Street, and sometimes we miss that. Those are big undertakings, and a lot of people, Ms. Kreitz, Mr. Doty, Ms. Brown, and a whole litany of folks have worked very hard on those to try to generate additional revenue. And then finally, something that I wanted to highlight, because I was here with the board a couple of years ago and we instituted our procurement card. I had an opportunity to present at a Region 8 meeting in Zionsville and share how we were able to grow that procurement card revenue from $16,000 to $46,000 in a year. We went from no program whatsoever to 145 vendors participating in that program, and we are the fastest growing school in the state of Indiana in that program. As a matter of fact, we are about 3% of the national total. That includes 16 states. That's as a result of Brandy Hensley and Pat Edwards working very, very hard, Mr. Sprout, Mr. Doty, charging everything under the sun to be able to generate those dollars to come back here. Looking ahead to 15, we want to continue to manage the budget and circuit breaker strategy. I don't mean to minimize that. That's an animal all in and of itself. It's not many words, but it's a lot of work, and I'm ably assisted by a number of folks. I will continue to serve as a project lead for all three units of Franklin Extended Education, which is our preschool project, helping Ms. Kreitz, our ACE project and enrichment, and coordinate all the financial logistics that are required. I will also serve as project lead until they complete for the coach remediation guided instruction. I think I need to add two other projects that Dr. Clendenning handed to me tonight. I don't know what they are yet, but we'll be doing that. And I think we got a special ed one coming as well. And then one last thing. I'm working with an intern from Franklin College, a very bright student named Danny Olson, who I hope have the opportunity to be here at some point. We intend to evaluate and update our 10 peer group schools. That we did that several years ago. We're utilizing a little more robust process to identify that group that we need to compare ourselves to academically and financially, and so we'll be back to present that in the not too distant future. Mr. Sprout.
Addressing technology in 2014 as mentioned, and I'm excited to see it in the curriculum side too, because you hear many schools that adopt one-to-one for the purpose of one-to-one. And through Mrs. Brown-Nally's project, we know exactly what we're doing with one-to-one, but at the same time, it is technology, so that was one of our major accomplishments. Another neat aspect of that is the students actually learning how to repair that. We've had 3 students in that class decide to go into computer technology, and they said that this class and this opportunity has been a big influence. Chromebook cards, don't forget those were also placed at the middle school and intermediate school to begin to foster that environment of one-to-one. Google accounts for students in grades 2 through 4. When elementaries approached us and said, we want elementary students to have Google accounts, I took a step backward. I said, really? And they have taken off with them. As a matter of fact, I just received an email today from an elementary teacher wanting some clarification and is excited about that opportunity. Move the core infrastructure. That was no small feat, and a lot of that credit goes to Bill and his folks. There was a lot of work in that. We had scheduled that for a 9-day outage, and thanks to the collaboration, everybody's effort, it went to 3 days. So we upgraded the wireless network at the high school, and we're excited to say that it is supporting the one-to-one Chromebook environment. Increased our internet bandwidth and also partner with CIESC. As you know, this kind of leads into the Google Apps conference coming up on the next slide. But CIESC has called us and said, hey, we want to collaborate with you. If you're doing this Google conference, we want in. And so they're also providing an opportunity for our teachers to become more educated with how to implement that into the classroom. As you may know, with iStep, we can only test it on Windows 7, and congratulations to the team. All the elementary labs are at Windows 7, so all the students go yay at home that they can take the iStep test. Looking at 2015, I'll be circling back with you on the copier lease. Our copier lease is up, so I'll be circling back with you. As mentioned earlier, the Google Apps emphasis at the middle school, and circling back on CIESC. That's where Google teachers are going to go for their training so they can bring it back and train the students. Hosting the Google Summit in April, we're really excited about. And once again, every year during the summer, we provide a technology training. And last year we had 557 teachers across the state of Indiana attend that. Web filter renewal, kind of circling back on the Chromebook and what we need to do here. Teacher computer upgrade is already beginning. We're going to replace the teacher computers. E-rate infrastructure RFP. We're reaching out with a new E-rate structure federally and trying to grasp some money to upgrade our infrastructure. We are going to continue the Chromebook process, and we're also going to determine with Leah Woolridge and the leadership here at the high school our learning management system. Previously, we've kind of let teachers go everywhere, and we're still going to deliver that freedom, but we're also going to try to focus in on what might be best for the district.
One of our guiding principles under leadership, one of the indicators of success there is growing our own leaders. And that's what we did with Transportation Department and Maintenance Department. While we were sad, extremely sad to see Susan go with all of her, obviously, her breadth of knowledge, we were equally appreciative of her taking Doug under her wings for many months and working with him on that transition plan and getting him ready to go for this school year. And I think it was a smooth transition. And then obviously the spot that Doug vacated was Maintenance Department Supervisor, and then Jay Gabehart took over that. So Doug had a lot of work to do to bring him up to speed and then get himself up to speed. So that has went well. On the safety side of things, you heard Dr. Clendenning talk about the CBIS and Creekside annexation. That's on here as well. But specifically the planning grant for safe routes to schools, which you'll see here in a little bit, that's completed. That work is completed with a partnership with the city. And then we continue to work through this secured school safety grant, which pays for our SROs, previously paid for the upgrades to our vestibules, but now this year it's just paying for our school resource officers. Jumping ahead to the energy savings of $150,000, that's an estimate. I don't have all of December's numbers in, but we were at 135,000 savings for 2014. I expect to hit that 150. If you recall, our goal each year is $110,000 savings. So we hit that again for this year as compared to 2012. So Matt gave us some credit for the IT move. He's pretty modest. That was mostly them. We just provide the power and the air conditioning to that. His folks did the rest. We completed the roof project at Northwood over the summer, and the transportation asphalt work, concrete work, that was completed. And then the Six Sigma Greenbelt training that I received this spring or this summer and early fall. And then moving on, looking ahead to next year, really using that Six Sigma training. Right now, we have a committee just in the infant stages, looking at enrichment, and then working with Sandra Brown on Cub Care, which is the ACE transition, moving alternative care experience under the umbrella of the school corporation. Then here in a little bit, you'll see we'll talk about the implementation of the Safe Routes to Schools, and really keep that energy savings project, if you will. It's a project. We'll call it a project because it's never ending. It has to keep on going and sustain itself. So our goal again, and I'm confident we'll hit it again, is $110,000 savings there. Every 3 years we like to do facility assessments of our roofs, the repairs needed, if there's replacement needed. Same thing with asphalt. I know we just had some of those projects this past year, but we'll take this year to do some assessments so that we can begin planning for maybe an upcoming GEO bond issue if that's needed, or if we can take care of things within just the normal capital projects budget, then we will. And then finally, you see here asbestos abatement. We do have asbestos in our buildings. We're okay with that. I don't want to scare anybody. We have to go through a lot of inspections on that, and we're compliant in every way, but maybe it's time to start thinking about just a complete abatement, and maybe move past that. So I don't know what that would cost. That's why I put it here as a facility assessment. I think it's just at least we'll look at it. So that's on there. It's something I want to get done this year to maybe budget for in the future. So that's where we are with operations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that completes our year in review. And next is the Franklin Education Connection.
I'll be presenting the report for Melissa and myself. I'm B. Northcott. I'm the Director of Development for Franklin Education Connection. And we just completed our first full year as a merged organization. If you recall, back in September of 2013, Study Connection absorbed the Education Foundation Board, and we created one new organization. It was a very successful year for us in 2014. We raised more money than the two organizations combined the previous year by quite a bit, and we have a broad support for our organization, from school staff and faculty to foundations, corporations, individuals, and we're getting more and more the word out about what we do. Study Connection continues to grow, helping kids in the 5 elementary schools and the intermediate school on a weekly basis. We now have 116 study buddies working with 112 students, making significant difference every day in the lives of these kids. The Education Foundation, since 2011, has granted more than or almost $44,000 to 34 programs that are reaching students in every school in the district. One example is that Webb Elementary a couple of years ago got a program called Magic Keyboard, and it's a music keyboard program, but it also helps kids in kindergarten learn letter recognition. It also helps the kids understand what fractions are with whole notes and half notes and all of that. Well, the teacher at Webb also teaches at Union, and so she took half of the keyboards from Webb and is using them at Union. So all of the kids in those two music programs are able to benefit from that program. And that's just one example of how we're reaching kids from essential skills to high ability. Destination Imagination, Dr. Clendenning mentioned that, Creekside. It started out as a pilot program with the Education Foundation through funding from the Brannigan Foundation and REMC. That program was so successful as a pilot project. We now have 11 teams at 6 schools who are preparing for competitions which start March 14th. And I know Danny has been an assessor for Destination Imagination before. It's absolutely a great program. And the one thing that we're really excited about now is also through a grant from the Brannigan Foundation, we are going to be able to buy equipment for the robotics program at Custer Baker Intermediate School. They needed a lot of equipment to help with the kids that want to be part of that program. And we're also going to be able to start a program at Franklin Community Middle School next year. So I met with Mr. Ahouse last week, and we're on the search for coaches and sponsors and volunteers for that program as well. So we're very excited about what we've been able to do in the last year. We're very excited about what we're going to be able to do in the next year, and we really appreciate the corporation's support of our efforts and the board's support. So thank you very much.
Do you have an idea on the Study Connection, how many kids, how long of a waiting list you have?
We don't have a waiting list per se, but as soon as we get a new study buddy who is ready to sign up, the site coordinators are always ready to identify another student. We're looking to figure out what that waiting list would be, but we don't have one per se.
So with, this would be available for anybody that would want to volunteer at each of the elementary schools?
At each of the elementary schools and Custer Baker.
And Custer Baker.
Right. And we have a lot of staff, faculty from the school corporation because they get their leadership points through that program. It qualifies for that. So
is it too late for folks to volunteer for that?
It is never too late.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
we
so
will take.
How do they, some folks that might be watching, how might they?
Our website is franklineducationconnection.org. You go to that and click on volunteer, and there's an application right there. There's also a phone number to contact Melissa Paramore, who is the Study Connection Director.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our goal, Danny, for this coming school year is to get 150 volunteers.
Well, that is I know that there have been some that maybe are a little intimidated about volunteering for that because of like the new math, which I had a hard enough time with the old math. But a lot of what these kids need is, yes, academics, that sort of thing, working. But if you're there consistently and providing something they can count on, that is a wonderful benefit to these kids. Would you agree?
Yes, we call it a homework mentoring program because there is a lot of academic, but it's that one-on-one connection with a student that they know you're going to be there every week and they can talk with you, and it's just another connection that they have, and another adult in the world that cares about them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I get started on finance and Ms. B's walking back to her chair, I just want to mention how blessed we are to have B in place now. And, I've been with the Education Foundation since its inception, and so has B. And she works tirelessly on behalf of our district, and to have that outside group doing that, I just want to say thanks to B for everything she does. She's terrific. There's actually two pieces to this. First of all, the financial report that you're used to seeing that I provide quarterly. We're going to go through that, and then I've got some visuals that will highlight kind of how we ended the year. And so this is at a relatively high level. I want to go down through our funds and clear up any questions that you might have. And if you've got any, please don't hesitate to ask. We'll start with the general fund balance, since that's the first one up down in the bottom section. We finished the year with a bit of an increase in general fund, not a lot, but we stand at about 8.65% of our general fund approved levy in retained earnings. You'll notice that it says 2.862 million. That's a little bit misleading in that we received performance grant dollars before the end of the year. Those will be distributed to our teachers on the February 13th payroll, so that carried over. Actually, our balance is about 2.712 million, and that brings us to the 8.65 in retained earnings that we arrived at with the Teachers Association in trying to keep us at a healthy level so that we've got a little bit of wiggle room should anything happen. Capital projects carried forward about $1,536,000 into 2015. I might mention again, there's $2 million listed. However, there's $473,000 in insurance money from the hail damage that has not yet been spent. And so really it wasn't quite as robust as it looked. We could theoretically have moved some capital projects money into rainy day and taken ourselves a little short, but we chose not to do that. We know it's there in the next year if we need it for debt service, and I'll get to that one in a moment. Transportation required nearly $600,000 of additional support this year, $500,000 from the rainy day. We had money coming from other directions. We were shorted, in my view, $300,000 in our levy for transportation this past year. As I've mentioned to you in board meetings before, we met with the Department of Local Government Finance to try to determine what we could do differently, if anything. I spoke with the DLGF last week. I expect our 1782 or our budget order will be in the next week or so. And his indication to me was that it looks like we made our transportation levy barely. I don't care if it's barely by a mile. It doesn't matter. We need the extra $300,000. That will help. But the bottom line is, even if we'd gotten the 300, we're still upside down 300,000. So we have got to make some inroads there. These folks have not been incompetent or inept in any way. We are underfunded. We will request an additional levy this coming year. I can guarantee you that once we get past a large debt service. I don't know that we'll get it, but we've got to flip that rock and do our very best, and we'll see where we go. Bus replacement finished the year with a balance of $47,580. We've done our best to replace the buses that we can. We had a bus totaled last year that was in perfectly good working order. We then had to invest in a brand new bus, which we hadn't counted on. So we'd hoped we'd get 3 new buses. We ended up getting a replacement and 2 used buses. 2012, Doug Dickinson has done a great deal of due diligence trying to find buses in Indiana or elsewhere that are in good shape, that we can replace buses more rapidly than we have been in the past. I'm going to show you a visual in a moment on the average age of the bus fleet. It's not a particularly pretty picture. If I were advising you in how not to do life, that's what it looks like in just a moment. We don't have much choice. This is one of the places where we've been able to move money into rainy day to provide for other needs. Our debt service ends the year $829,000 short of our June payment. Certainly we can, prior to the middle of the year, move that from our debt service fund. We've got to be careful in that we've worked prudently, and over the last several years, we've talked about it ad nauseum, how important it is to boost that rainy day and to get a decent general fund operating balance. We knew this day was coming. It's here. This is the single largest payment we will ever have. We refinanced bonds a couple years ago with Mr. Young's help, and that offset about $500,000 in that loss, but it's still significant, and we certainly all know that. We're going to have that same shortage in December, and so depending on what we're able to do with our entire budget, and I should point out too that each of these budgets are separate from one another, and so you can't take money from a certain funds and stick them in others, and so they've got to kind of stand on their own. So when you talk about transportation, bus replacement, general fund, and the debt service, those are tax levied funds. General fund is provided money, most of the money from the state of Indiana, which is very different. Our rainy day is down 6.7% this year, and that's due in part to the transportation rainy day transfer that we did earlier in the year. We did move $150,000 from bus replacement back into rainy day, so we were only down $350,000. But that's your savings account, and once it's gone, it's gone. And you've got to be careful to be able to at least save for the rainy day, which is what it's all about. Food service, again, Mrs. Overton, who does an incredible job, managed through at about a break-even pace. It probably should be noted that we have for the past several years in indirect costs moved about $100,000 a year into the general fund to help support things. She's able to do that. She's able to manage PPACA. She's able to manage the various programs at all the schools at virtually no cost or no cost and still break even. Her retained earnings were $841,000 at the end of the year. When she arrived, it was $30,000 and a wing and a prayer. She's done an awfully good job. This is a little bit about our enrollment trend. I might mention this. We just had an update. In fact, just in Discussables today, shared with the teachers. You know, we were up about 50 kids or so to start this year, and it would have been lovely if we'd been able to capture all of that as additional revenue. But unfortunately, the state changed in large part the free and reduced calculation in the complexity grant, and we're down about $180,000 in that. So the enrollment trend bounced up this past year. We hope that that will continue. Probably important to note, we get a second student count in February, I think on February the 2nd. And so if we've lost students, they will adjust that downward at that time, which they began doing about a year ago. And that we've not been terribly excited about that. This is the general fund operating balance over the last several years. You can see the jump we made in 11 purposely. Again, we've worked in concert with FCTA to make sure that we've maintained what we all consider to be a reasonable balance. Our target goal is 8%, and we are above that just a little bit this year. This is our rainy day history. We've talked about how important it is to maintain that balance just to be able to survive when we hit the years like this one, when we have a large debt service payment. This does reflect us going down just a little bit due to the transportation transfer. And then finally, this is the average age of our bus fleet. In 2011, it was 6.716 years. This year, moving into 15, it's 8.42. The crows are going to come home to roost at some point. It may at some point be prudent to think about a general obligation bond to help replace some of the buses quickly or to do something else, but it's probably coming. Our folks do a great job taking care of the fleet, but the bottom line is once it hits 10, 11 years, it's going to be hard to catch up. And so that's kind of where we're at. I would say this in closing, be happy to answer any questions as well. While some of this doesn't look particularly exciting or as if we've done particularly well, there's been a great deal of effort put forth by every single person that works in Franklin Community Schools, from the highest level administrator to the part-time staff member. And none of what has happened we would have been capable of doing that without everyone's help and input. And we absolutely, truly do appreciate that. The circuit breaker situation makes it really, really difficult. We moved about $2 million from general fund in to be able to make our mortgage payment this year. If we didn't have to do that, that would make the landscape very different. I've said this before. I take every opportunity I can to say it. If you took Greenwood, Mooresville, and Martinsville and added them together, their loss doesn't total more than about $40,000, and we'll lose $3 million this year. It's not fair. It's untenable. But given our circumstance, and thanks to so many people who have worked so hard at sacrificing and adjusting and adapting, we've been able to hold our own, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again in 15. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have specifically about the financial report.
Don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
The assessment update.
Curriculum directors across the state are trying to prepare board members, community members, families, teachers, students for the upcoming changes to ISTEP and the proficiency scores that we are expecting. We know following the lead of some states that have gone before us to already move to these types of tests, they see significant drops in scores, especially the first year those tests are implemented. In December, NWEA gave us a little bit of helpful information, more than anything we've gotten so far, as a best guesstimate for what our scores might look like compared to what New York, Illinois, and Kentucky have already experienced. So they just took their proficiency test because they've been doing these tests for 2 or 3 years and aligned it with the current NWEA cut scores. So we took those cut scores and compared it to our fall NWEA scores for 3rd and 4th grade, because we only do NWEA at the elementary level this year. You can see this is what the best guesstimates are for pass rates for reading and math. So I'm just wanting to share this information with you early and often, so that if these scores play out like we think they will across the state come May and June, there's not a sky is falling kind of response. The right side of this paper looks at the sky is falling. The spring cut scores. So last year we did have data for Custer Baker and the middle school, so that's why I added the right column as well, just to kind of give us a glimpse of what we might be expecting. I know. Yuck. I will tell you that in the research I've done, watching these states, they take a huge dip the first year, but the second year, the third year, and even the fourth year, you start to see them rise again. It's just we've not tested our students in the kinds of ways they're going to be tested. And it's going to take them a little while to figure out exactly what we're asking them to do. Any questions?
You know, we talked about this today at Discussables, but one of the things that's very hard to fathom is that the state of Indiana still has not issued the contractor for this assessment that we're going to be measured on.
That we will give before they.
And that's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard. So that's the other thing to look at. So I just reiterate, our teachers are doing really well. You know, when Deb and I were at Needham, they were drilling down into these very things. And I think Mr. Pettit even said, we're ready for the ISTEP. I won't hold him to that, but I believe that's what he said. And so it is a lot of work for what we're doing. So.
Cub Care.
Thank you. And I just have the first couple of slides, and I'll turn it over to Sandra. She's really the driver of this transition. Out of the Revenue Generation Committee came the proposal to bring alternative care experience under the umbrella of Franklin Community Schools. And so that's where Sandra and I come into this. And it's, while we're a committee of two, we go out and I know Sandra has been talking to Carol Poe, who is the director of ACE currently. And so that group, the Revenue Generation Group, had already done an FMEA and already really done a lot of the legwork. And so we just pick the ball up and continue to run with it and bring that under there. So I just put these process steps. While we're not a full-blown committee project, if you will, we're still using some of the same kind of templates and jargon that we would have in a DMEG process. We used a project charter so that we had a goal statement, which you can see here in a little bit. We've sent out a survey, surveyed parents, voice of the customer, voice of the business. We've talked to Jeff, talked to the ACE employees, and then we used a stakeholder analysis, risk analysis to understand who and how we need to communicate with folks and what are all the tasks that need to be done. And so that's where we'll eventually end up with this plan. And so I'll let Sandra take it from there and talk about the goals.
I'll let you go ahead and try that. I think that we cannot stand here without saying thanks to Carol Poe again for the 25 years of service for what has been the after-school care experience or the ACE program in our schools, and now will become known as Cub Care. And we're excited to partner with preschool being Cub Academy and Cub Care, and so we feel like we're under the umbrella of the Cub Den. So we're excited about bringing this opportunity. And as Bill said, this came out of the Revenue Committee, and our goal statement is by August 2015, we'll have in place a before and after school care program for grades K through 6 that will generate $200,000 annual gross revenue. One of the things that came out of the survey from parents that previously have had kids in ACE and currently have kids in ACE
was they love the ACE program. And so we didn't want to jump in with a lot of changes. So basically, things are going to be kind of the same so that parents will have a nice smooth transition and students will as well. One of the things too parents were very concerned about was that it be affordable to them. And we know that with 2 working parents, that can be an issue. And so we wanted to make sure that for this year, there'll be no fee changes in the first year of Cub Care. Again, we will provide the homework supervision and hopefully have more access into the computer lab. Also to bring some enrichment activities to our programs and of course, keep it a fun and safe learning environment. We still have a lot of work to do. While it seems like we've done a lot of work, we still have a lot of work to do, and at every turn there seems to be lots of questions. So one of the things that Carissa in central office will work on in June is onboarding our employees, and Dawn and Tammy have been working on the processes that we need to implement. Currently we're working on our job descriptions, and hopefully our parent handbook will really become a part of our students' agenda in our regular handbook. There will be a section for Cub Care so that every parent can see that process and know what the expense is and what days it's available, etc. So that will be in there. One of the things to get on board is to try to have a site at Custer Baker. Those students have had care, but they've been bused to other schools to have that care. So we're hoping to have a program at Custer Baker Intermediate School. Some of the improvements we would like to see is to have some consistency of the program and the care between the 6 schools. And as I said before, to have use of the computers in the gym after school. Providing that homework help, and we also are looking into some extended days like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and a few days of the Christmas break, days over spring break. So we're looking at adding in some care for parents as well. One of the things to improve in the program is to just keep that constant training of the staff so that they all know what the expectations are and that the program can run smoothly at every school. So that's kind of where we are currently with Cub Care, and we're looking forward to that transition. Any questions?
So you expect to take ownership of this in August when we come back to school?
Correct. Yeah, we'll be onboarding employees in June, and then they'll be ready to go in August. What process?
Thank you.
All right, what are the action items?
Mr. Mashmeyer,
Transfers.
9.3, we're going to ask that it be tabled, I believe, Matt, is that correct? We are good to go. Okay, thank you.
Each year, it's my obligation to request approval of our intra-district transfers. Just a reminder that each year we have to zero out balances such that if we have an overage in an area, it can offset areas where we've gone into the red. And so I believe Mrs. Morgan has a packet of information for anyone's purview if you wish. It's pretty significant, pretty thick with all of our line items in there, but I would request permission to complete our intra-district transfers so that we can zero out all of our balances.
Been moved for approval. Any questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Great. Safe routes to school.
Thank you, Mr. Mashmeyer.
Mrs. Nally wants to know if you're going to do all 100.
Yes. I was originally going to air the football game up here while I read to you every page, if that's okay with Matt. No. No, it's 131 pages, and so I'm not going to put it up there. School board members, everyone up here, admin team, you can look at it. I am requesting approval of the plan. That's simply all we're doing. We're not asking for approval to spend the dollar figures that are noted in here. This is basically a formality of the plan, but what I would like to draw your attention to is, and I do have hard copies. I have this on a CD as well, and you can also access it through Blue Sky. But on page 81 begins the student route maps, and these are important. I just call these out because this is what we will eventually market and advertise to our student body and our parents once we accomplish the upgrades, if you will, or infrastructure that's there. Okay, and when we talk about these upgrades, you can go to the engineering piece, which begins on page 91, and it's broken down into West Campus, Central Campus, and East Campus. Okay, West being Creekside Custer Baker, the Central being Middle School Northwood, and excuse me, and then the East Campus being Needham and Webb. So it's broken down, and so there are many things embedded in here that are really going to be taken care of through the city's master plan, if you will, and what they've got already have on the books. But some of the things that are kind of a partnership, if you will, for us and the engineering piece would be the installation of a trail on the backside of Creekside Elementary. If you could look at that as you look through there, would be the backside of that. It's an 8-foot trail, and it would connect and then come around to State Road 44 and then cross there with some improvements to that crossing. That, along with some trails at Needham and Webb to connect the Greenway Trail that's there, and then to the neighborhood to the south of Webb Elementary, connections there, and then the work, if there were improvements made by the city through, and this is a long process to work with NDOT on US 31. If we improve that entrance there to Mallory Parkway for pedestrian crossing, then if you total all those up, it's about $1,250,000 as estimated in here. But that can be paid for through grants. There's most of these grants are 20% matching. So if you multiply 20% times 1.2, you come up with $250,000. If you split that between the city and the school corporation, now you're down to what our piece of the pie would be. Okay, so those are things that we would. That's years out. Okay. A lot of the things that we're already starting in here would be the encouragement, the education pieces, and the enforcement. And so this spring, we're going to start with kicking this off with a bike rodeo and some things with the getting kids helmets and things like that. Okay, so that's really where we're at. We're just the city is viewing this as well. And so we're just asking for approval of the plan itself to move forward.
Is there a timeline in that plan somewhere? 10 years, 5 years?
It's talking to the engineer at the city, Travis Underhill. He acted like we would, it's a 5-year plan. It's 2020 because when you look at their master plan, a lot of the things over at the Eastview bypass, 2017, 18, 19, and then possibly 2020 if we were to do something there at the US 31 Mallory Parkway improvements for pedestrians. So it's really a 5-year plan.
And what's our contribution of the whole 5 years financially estimated?
Estimated $250,000.
Us?
Yes, if for a local matching, if you're looking at everything.
Yeah, but the city, I thought, was paying part of that 250.
Right, yeah, that's
So
local.
I'm talking about just us, our dollars.
125.
Yeah.
In today's dollars.
Right.
In today's dollars over the next 5 years.
Right.
To do it all. But then there's a cost savings too, because then you wouldn't need to run as many buses and such in theory, right?
Well, if you implemented, if you could encourage those kids to, more kids walk and ride, and if you implemented maybe a quarter-mile walk zone or half-mile walk zone, then yes, there's potential there to reduce the amount of buses. That has that potential, yes.
Would this, Jeff, would this come out of capital projects fund?
It likely would have to, yes.
You'll notice on the plan that, for example, it redirects Cub Drive. So that's really the big cost dollars where that retention pond is between Cub Drive and Crowfield. That's what actually gets changed in order to accommodate more kids to be able to walk. So that's where the cost comes in as you're looking at that. And it could save money, but one of the things I wanted to talk to, we talked to parents, we have parents on the committee. We're not going to hard and fast half-mile walk zone or anything like that. We're providing opportunities for people. And then there's a whole lot of work to do, but it's one more step really in the big master plan of the city and the schools to work together.
Okay.
I'll move for approval.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Any more comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
As you recall, last month we went through a project for the online bill pay, and I won't make you sit through it again. But to return to our objective, with current textbook rental and potential upcoming payments, ACE, preschool, school events and sales, to determine the best method of taking online payments to meet the needs of all customers, including those inside of FCS, while minimizing costs for all customers. To skip ahead, I'd be more than willing to review any of these. These are the vendors we looked at, and we chose school pay. And the important part of the school pay was the cost. The initial cost was $750 with an annual renewal of $300. The transaction costs would be 2.99% plus 30 cents per transaction. Electronic checks are 0.75% plus 50 cents per transaction. School pay, due to the criteria used in the HP, was the vendor of choice. On these costs, we had 4 options. Option 1 was the families incur all the costs. And as families currently do not cover any of the costs associated with textbook, the school could recoup approximately $2,000. Option 2 was family incurs part of the costs. Option 3 was families incur no costs. The increase in the costs incurred by the district would continue to increase as additional families pay online. And finally, option 4 was to just keep the current process. Obviously, this is an opportunity. More and more people are going online, and it does not remove the opportunity for people to pay in cash and not be charged this. Roger had reviewed the contract that the company came forward with and made a couple recommendations. He has not seen this. I received it at about 4 o'clock today. So I am glad to tell you, Roger, they addressed both of your concerns. But I think we have a couple options here that the board might choose. 1, you could obviously approve it. 2, we could table it. Or 3, we could approve it with the understanding that Roger's going to overlook the contract before we implement.
The administration's recommending number 3.
Approve it and have Roger
Approve it and
look
have
at
Roger look at it.
And this has the people paying the cost?
Yes.
The payors paying whatever the cost is.
Correct. They would incur the fees.
Okay.
Move for approval with Roger.
All right, there's a motion. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by sign of aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Preschool.
While Katie makes her way up here, she's going to actually present this information. I just wanted to mention to you, you received some information on the Cub Care, the ACE program. Katie has been terrific in leading this preschool piece. Bill Doty has sponsored, or actually led the the enrichment piece. We are working behind the scenes to bring those three entities together so that we're not working as appendages. We will be back in February to make that presentation to you and to share with you how we intend to mesh those three together. And we're working behind the scenes to do that. So I just want to mention that before Katie took the mic.
The two documents you see on here have been developed by the committee in the business office, primarily the business office, with the committee reviewing them. The first document will be used during registration of any new student into the preschool at the age of 3 or 4. And it just reviews the NSF checks, late fees, and so forth. So when the parents come to register, they will be filling out this document, understanding the payment options. Don Burton and Tammy Jackson will be sitting with them one-on-one at registration to give them the 4 different payment options and collecting their registration fee. It discussed on this document as well that all Franklin School employees will have a 5% discount off the fees. And depending on how they break that out into the options, if it's a weekly 5% or so forth. Breaks down to the full day and half day option. Primarily Don Burton worked on this and Tammy Jackson. Then she brought it to the committee. We reviewed it, made some edits to it. So this is one document we will use at the preschool registration. The other document that we will need is the employee discount. That's another document that we'll need to give to Brooke and to keep in their file for the Franklin School employees that will receive that discount. They will also, in one of these documents, it's embedded within there, have the option to have payroll deduction, which Brooke is kindly going to work on that with us as well. So these 2 documents we'll need if they do the payroll deduction. So those are the 2 documents on there. And I noted that they have 4 different payment options, 10 equal payments, the 1st and the 15th of the month, 36 equal installments, or 20 equal payroll deductions. So they have some options when they sit down with us as registration. We'll meet one-on-one with them and give those options to parents. The postcard that I laid on in front of you on your desk just goes over again the name, Cub Academy, the full day and the half day options, registration information, and what they'll need for registration, and contact on the back corner. We've tried to distribute these to all the schools, medical offices, doctor's office, Benjamin's, all those dance academies, different places in Franklin to get the word out. And the last items that I'll be bringing over the next few months, we still are finalizing the parent handbook, which we have it. We just have to put some fine tuning to that, and we'll give that to them at the Meet the Teacher night. So that'll be another item coming, the job postings and positions, and then the unit structure for that. So those are coming down the pipeline, but for now, this is items that we'll need for registration.
But just to reiterate, the cost is $155 a week.
Yes, sir.
And what's the part-time cost?
75.
$75. So tonight, we're asking for approval of those 2 items.
First of all, let me publicly say what a tremendous job you've done. This is like starting your own business. And I know you're not alone, but I know it wouldn't have happened without your leadership. And it's an amazing effort. And I know there's still work to be done by you and others, but this wouldn't have happened without your contribution.
I have a great committee backbone. And we've been able to delegate, and everybody has their expertise within the committee. And then we had subcommittees, so I did not do this alone. Jeff has also held my hand through it as well, Dr. Kennedy. So thank you, but it's taken a lot of people to make this happen, and it is starting a business. It feels like starting a business.
One question I do have is what level of involvement do you have in any of this?
He will review the final documents with regard to the fee and registration information.
I have one question. On the weekly fee for the full day, does that automatically include the daycare before and after school, or is that an additional charge?
The half-day program does not have a daycare offer.
Right. But the full day, I'm just the 155, that includes the
All inclusive.
So everything, so if they would choose not to have that, are they going to get any discounts? No, it's just is what it, okay.
I will tell you, we did talk about that. That was one that was a lengthy conversation about do you pay for till 3 or whatever, or do you pay till 6? And looking at the trend from other groups, it's all-inclusive pay. We will review that. That's one that we are going to look at for the following year.
That goes back in not my expertise, that business world.
Right.
And when we're reviewing the competitors, or if you want to say that, or surrounding similar preschool programming, that's how they've done it for the business world of it. But we've talked at length about, that is something that we'll look at when we need to make adjustments, because we'll need to make them in the next 3 years. This is a new program. We're trying to get all the kinks out, but we'll have some.
Thank you.
I'll move for approval.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Any more questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Neola policy.
Thank you.
Always slip into
9.5,
pages
yes.
somewhere.
We are going to take these as a whole group.
Oh, shoot.
I know that Mr. Vaught is chagrined with that, but we need to do that. So we will take them as a whole group. Looking at annual performance policy 2700, employee policy 3124, foreign national foreign exchange policies, homeschooling, immunization, mandatory curriculum, and pesticides. I would ask that you approve them as they were presented last month.
Move for approval.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the policy signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're down to discussion items.
Mr. Mashmeyer, this is a discussion item, but I think I'm going to ask that you would move it to an action. Mr. Corliss is here. We were doing Peter Pan on the first weekend of February. And in order to make Peter Pan fly and Tinkerbell, we are asking for a partnership with a company called ZFX Service Agreement. We did have Mr. Young review this, and I believe there's nothing with regard to the actual agreement. There were extensive conversations around the safety of the students. And one thing that we have come up with in doing that is adults will be the only people that will actually be in control of the kids. Mr. Wirtz, I think his son is going to be one of the ones flying. So if he wants to be the dad that helps do that. We do have other schools that have used a flying apparatus for the Peter Pan, but this is something we need your approval on for the agreement. So this is a discussion. Mr. Corliss is here tonight for questions or comments. And then if there are none, then I would ask that you move it to an action item.
So what's our insurance cover?
We are covered on their policy.
Yeah.
We are added to their policy.
Oh, good. So the claim doesn't affect our rates. I prefer not to have a claim.
There is no claim. We also have coverage through our
Yeah.
We're covered.
All right.
What's kind of neat about this, we are also on their policy as well.
And theirs is primary? You think their policy then is primary?
And so through all the practices and that sort of thing, adults are in charge of that.
Yes. They will be here to train the adults. And I believe Mr. Tindall's was one that you mentioned, and there was a couple others that you had mentioned as adults. Yes.
This company has a good safety record?
Absolutely. They're the number one in the nation for Peter Pan and also some of the Cirque du Soleil touring productions. They are the premier client. I would not have chosen anyone else for it.
Okay.
Total cost is 11,000.
Total cost from them, including the deposit, which is refundable, is $1,500. It's actually the set drops, all the drops, and the flying, and the gentleman here, the training and the set installation.
Does our gate cover that?
No. Additional costs for the program, for the
Total cost of putting on the production.
Approximately $1,000 programs. You'll have
I don't want to do the math, Doug. Just give me a number. 15,000.
and that would be on the high side.
And for the funds that were short in terms of the gate revenue, where does that difference come from?
Will come from the PAC revenue that you viewed in the corporation financials. I think that we've done a good job of marketing, and I think talking to Mr. Horst, I asked that very question about revenue in terms of what if it comes up short.
Students been charged with fundraising. For example, there's been a couple students who have done very well with this, with excess of $1,400. Caleb. So there have been fundraising efforts, and of course we are seeking them the $10,000 for the arts. Obviously, the arts are taking the risk, but with marketing efforts, given the kind of show it is, the children's show. For being tenacious and going out into our elementary school. We're also going to be doing a free voucher for a student accompanied with the adult ticket to help stimulate revenue. Franklin Elementary and middle school, and working with Greenwood School Corporation on the same topic.
I'll move. You know what? I would prefer that I not move it, and I would prefer that Mr. Wertz not move this for a couple of reasons, but both of our sons are in this production, so. Actually, what I was saying is I prefer neither of us do
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry, I thought you didn't do that.
Nope.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved for approval. Any more questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck. Look forward to that show. All right. Board administrative comments. Mr. Mercer?
Just a note to the board, we did receive in December performance grant dollars to the tune of slightly above 150,000. Those were disaggregated by building. We met with FCTA and their negotiations team several weeks ago. It was determined at that point and validated by the State Board of Accounts that we could do this pending our master agreement, which is consistent, that we pool those dollars and distribute equally amongst all of our buildings. There are a litany of reasons why that's been chosen to have been done. That was discussed today in Discussables with Dr. Clendenning and Mr. Wallace. So somewhere in the vicinity is slightly above $600 total per person prior to taxes and things being deducted. I would suspect $500 or a little bit more is what most would net to take home. We'll be determining that, and it will be distributed on the February 13th payroll. So that's the plan for the performance grant dollars. This is the first time we've received those and first time, obviously, that we've distributed them.
Also note that counselors are not under the definition of a teacher this last year. We are awarding the counselors of each building the same amount reflective of the performance grants, and that will come out of the 53% from the admin side of the general budget.
You don't need any action from us.
No.
No.
No. It's been a long meeting, but I'll quickly go through. I want to just highlight one praise, and that is with regard to the Hall of Fame. We are moving towards recognizing people that have walked our halls to show the kids that you can do anything if you want to be a graduate of our school. And so down here, this is right as soon as you walk in on the right-hand side. These used to be windows into the guidance office. That will be the Frederick Community High School Alumni Hall of Fame. Attached, you will see a document that talks about how a person gets nominated. This year, the committee, which we have members of Mr. Wallace and Mr. Harder, Mr. Vaught, Mrs. Milliken was on it. There's several others as well. Mr. Ahouse. And we're going to come up with the list. So if you know of someone that you think will be worthy of this first class, get your name to one of us and we'll bring that to an upcoming meeting. And then starting in August of next school year, we'll have on our website nominations for everybody to nominate people. The idea would be that nominations would be closed in December, select a candidate, and then have a banquet for the summa cum laude students and an alumni hall honoree would speak to them to kind of talk about that. So if you have someone that you feel would fit this criteria that we have before you, let us know. Our guiding principles are what's reigning supreme to help us get that. We also said it must be a significant contribution, and that is probably what's up in the air. So what's significant? It could be anything. The one thing it won't be, you could be an athletic person, and that'd be wonderful, but the Athletic Hall of Fame will be down at that end. But you could be an athlete and have a significant contribution in your vocation, and you can be included in that. So for athletic accomplishment, we'll stay down at that end. We'll move the significant endeavor to the main entrance. We're looking forward to that. It's a real exciting time. I'll just stay up here. I'll get to you in just a second. But calendar events, Martin Luther King Day is a day off. Knock on for Micah, we will not have a snow day here between now and then, but that is a day off. And then we have quarterly board meeting here at the high school for breakfast with the faculty, and then a look at individual student growth and what's going on. We're going to see Mr. Jackson, his class, and all the great things. If you've not been there, we're going to tour the school and see some wonderful things about that. And that's on the 30th. And then lastly, for my part, weather delays. Just a quick reminder for everybody, please download the iTunes app because that's the easiest, quickest way to get information. And also a reminder to all parents watching and everyone, -10 is the weather threshold with wind chill and or real temperature where a delay would take place. I did meet with the teachers today. We are looking at creating a top end. So we know immediately, how cold is too cold. And I will tell you right now, one thing we're looking at is -25. And that would be a wind chill. And then we're looking at in the high teens as actual temperature, because as we all know, that high teen with just a little bit of wind could be really cold. And so we're looking at that. I will bring those back for your adoption, but -10, everyone, with regard to delay, and then some other things along that. And we will be notified by 5:30 if we will delay. And I did tell the teachers that if there's a delay and they just need to get here safely, they don't have to get here at normal time. If they're here 5 minutes before the kids, that's great. And if it's a few minutes late after the kids, just let the building principal know, that's great. Support staff, they come with a 2-hour delay. Mr. Doty.
Real quick. Thanks for giving me this time. I'm part of, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind taking one pass around. I'm part of the class of 2015 for Leadership Johnson County. And as most of you are probably aware of that program, you're put in a team to start that class off with, and you participate in a customer or a community service project. So our team has created this partnership with Gleaners, where we're creating a pilot program, and we're going to do it here in Franklin schools with Franklin students. And what I've passed around to you all here is just our little flyer. Hopefully, Dr. Clendenning will allow me to put this on our school corporation webpage and just post this out. But our team has created a Facebook page. It's what our project consists of: an online fundraiser through social media. The Ice Bucket Challenge with ALS was our inspiration. We're not doing an Ice Bucket Challenge, but it's the social media aspect of fundraising is what intrigued us, and that's where we're going with this. The folks, the students that we're targeting are already in the BackSacks program through Gleaners. And so what we're trying to do is feed those same students during an extended break. And hopefully we can sustain that, and meaning fall break, but we're trying to get enough funds raised to feed all 198 students that are currently in that program for the entire week of spring break. And so if this pilot program works with Gleaners, they're going to extend it through the other school corporations in Johnson County. Okay, so look for this coming out. It's going to be February 2nd. It's going to be a 2-week fundraiser period on social media. There'll be a little quirky thing that's a piece of it. It's going to be kind of fun. We're a Franklin Hunger Hero. And so you can see the spoon has a little cape on it. And so there'll be something fun with the cape, as you can imagine. So what the challenge will be is to forego buying your lunch, or buying you're going out to a lunch meeting and buying your office staff lunch, or whatever it may be, and then donating to the fundraiser, and then maybe bringing in your lunchbox or whatever and put it on. Challenge somebody else through social media to do the same thing. That's the gist of it. Appreciate the time, and so look for that February 2nd. Thank you.
Do you know how much you're looking for, or are you not wanting to?
Well, yeah, if you look on the back page of that, it talks a little bit about where the website, if you go to those websites and you look at that, we have already $500 dedicated from some corporations in Franklin, in the area, and we're trying to get to $5,000, and that will actually feed the entire family of those students for the entire week of spring break. And where BackSacks program just feeds that one student, this would hopefully, we can get there, feed the entire family of those students. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, that brings us to,
Yeah, I just have a comment that I would like to thank Mr. Ahouse and his staff for changing the pickup route or the pickup procedure at the middle school. It has worked wonderfully as a parent who picks up children. It has been so much less frustrating, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
all right, are there any other board or administrative comments? We do allow at the end of the board meeting up to 2 minutes if there are any public comments about other items, because that early comments were only on the agenda. Yes, please. Would you please?
Bill Wallace, President, FCTA. I hadn't planned on making a statement tonight, so I wrote this quickly. I would like to read it because I wanted it to be generic, because I'm here representing FCTA, not myself. So this was written during the meeting, so I missed most of the meeting and wasn't really paying attention. Now I know how it feels to be a principal. I am not here to dispute that Dr. Clendenning deserved the raise he had just been given. I can honestly say that Dr. Clendenning is the best superintendent I've ever had. Since I'm old, I've had a few. But as he has said, we've had a good relationship. He's an honorable man and someone I can trust with valuable information. We have put out many fires that only had a little flame up to that point, a little bit of smoke at that point. I think he would agree I have also done all I can to keep a good relationship. On a personal note, beside Pam Milliken and perhaps Dave Seaver and his area of professional development, I miss our book discussions, by the way. Beside those two, I haven't really had anyone who has helped me more in my walk in the next phase of my professional career as Dr. Clendenning. But I would like to share some statistics tonight. Since Dr. Clendenning has been here in his position, his check has gone up somewhere between $700 and $800 a check. A veteran teacher has seen their check go up around $8 in that same time period. Again, I don't blame Dr. Clendenning for the lack of raises for teachers. Many of the factors that has caused this was put in place way before he got here. But to be honest, some of that blame for the lack of raises for teachers is my fault. I am to blame, not him. Their lack of raises because FCTA felt that we had to tighten our belts to help keep this corporation afloat. Let me state again, I believe Dr. Clendening has earned the raise he has been given. But we have been told over and over again that times are tough and we must all do our part until we are out of this financial crisis. FCTA has done their part. Teachers have done their part. FCTA isn't feeling that that bleeding blue is quite equal right now. I also agree that Dr. Clendening and Mr. Mercer deserves a lot of credit for creating an environment of financial stability. That is almost an impossible job right now. I do want to say that there were 300 teachers who willingly suffered to help in this cause. My leadership team deserves a lot of credit for that as well. Credit that they are rarely or ever given from the board. So on behalf of FCTA, you're welcome.
All right, are there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion. So moved.